This episode of To Make Sense was brought to you by the following sponsors. And by contributions to your TWIMC station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another episode of To Make Sense. We are back once again with another episode for y'all. My name is Will. The man to my right is Steven. Or so he's told me, but we're not 100% sure of that. And this is To Make Sense. If you've never seen the podcast before, this is where I bring up topics that that man over there, yes, that man, not him, but this man over here, he is going to respond to them. And he may or may not know what I'm talking about. As a matter of fact, he usually doesn't know what I'm about. But hey, we are here, and we're ready to bring you some entertainment. Physically. Yeah, we're actually going to show up to your house, and we're going to bring you the entertainment.
Bringing the entertainment straight to your door.
We just came to the conclusion, shortly before this episode began, that just giving you entertainment virtually is not enough. We need to be there in person to give you the entertainment that you so desire.
That you know, not that you desire. Not that you desire. That you need.
Autoplay, but, you know.
The entertainment that you need. Not that you desire. The entertainment that you require.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about this podcast. You need this podcast to survive. It's literally impossible. Have you ever considered that everyone who's died up till now, maybe the cause of death wasn't whatever the doctors or whatever said. Maybe it was just a lack of consumption of this podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is obviously a joke, and I didn't mean to. I'm really hoping no one's watching this episode after having lost someone close to them, and I'm just over here telling them that they died because they didn't watch us. That'd be extremely insensitive. Like, I didn't want to stop myself, but while I was telling the joke, yeah, this may not be the best thing to say for the off chance that someone's watching this who is maybe grieving. That's just like, you know. But anyways, all that aside, welcome to the podcast. So to start off, we're going to acknowledge one thing, and that is that Steven is once again back to his old camera setup, but he has something different in place for the mic. He calls it a plan that he has. Not even that he says it that way.
I said I has idea, or I has a plan. Or
he has plan.
Well,
he doesn't have
so
a plan.
Here's the thing.
He has a plan.
So I went.
He has plan.
Let me tell you guys a story. Since the last episode that we recorded, where I had this same camera set up and was using the camera as a microphone because I didn't have another microphone, I went back to my actual home, not the college apartment that I live in, and I was going to bring all my podcast stuff back down here, so in anticipation of us recording an episode, and I brought my computer, not my laptop, my other computer back down like I was supposed to, so I'm on that, but I completely forgot the good mic and the other camera, so I'm still using old camera, but I went and dug out my old headphones, and you may remember this set of headphones from the early days of the podcast. You can see this on many of our earlier episodes, and I was using the mic from that, so yeah, because that's what I did before. So this episode will probably sound on my end a lot like some of our earlier episodes. So this is really the true throwback if you think about it.
Well, if this was gonna be a throwback, I would need my pair of headphones as well, because I used to wear a pair of headphones. Now I just have AirPods that transfer audio to me, which was made by the glorious company of Apple, you know, aka his enemy number one. But now, what's funny about this whole thing is that he told me that he forgot his mic, but that he has planned for said mic. And in my mind, I was like, all right, well, that kind of sucks, but at least he has a plan and by him mentioning only forgetting his mic, that in my mind, that meant, well, at least he has his good camera, so I don't gotta worry about that. And then come to find out, he also forgot that.
Yeah.
when we got into a call, I saw that. I was like, wait, I thought you had your camera. And he's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that too. And I was like, hey, okay. Yeah. But yeah. I think it might have actually been something you told me before, where you're like, no, I think you only told me via messages that you forgot your mic, but I came on here and I found out about the camera. But if you're listening, for those listening on streaming, whatever his camera looks like doesn't matter to you, because only hearing our voices, our audio.
Our audio, yes.
So, whatever we look like, I could be doing wherever right now, and you'd be none the wiser. So, yeah.
Anyway.
If you want to see what I did, you'd have to pull up your phone and rewind and look at it, and if you're driving, I would not recommend that. Alright, speaking of driving, that actually transitioned into something that happened with me earlier this week. Actually, from what I understand, it might actually been either yesterday or 2 days ago this happened. So I went to Walmart, and I was there just to pick up some things. It was the day that I had returned home from Memorial Day, or Memorial Weekend, and I was like, so I had just gotten back here to my dorm. I was like, hey, to pick up a few things that I'm running low. I'm running low on some food, running low on some drinks. So I just need to go to Walmart, pick up some of these things. Now, when I got to Walmart, as I was walking through the parking lot, one car in particular caught my attention. And this car had a very particular sticker on it. Now, car stickers and other similar type of car cosmetics, they're nothing new, you know. These stickers range from completely normal stuff, like, you know, there's that family sticker where it's like a stick figure drawing of like everyone in the family, like the mom, dad, siblings, the dogs, whatever. Like they range from that, but then you also get some more outrageous car stickers. I'm sure you've probably seen a few yourself. And
yeah,
I think
especially since I live in a college. Well, technically you do as well, but we live in college towns,
yeah.
So.
Well, it's not strictly. In college town. You can find it wherever. Like, there's some outrageous car stickers that both of us have probably seen. And I also remember on one other podcast episode, I talked about a car sticker where someone was like, "No seatbelts. I'm gonna die if I get in a car crash. I'm gonna die like a real man." I remember. I don't know if you remember me talking about that one or not, but that was another story I had. But this particular sticker was not a saying or anything, but rather it was a drawing. And it was a drawing of a anime girl who was wearing pretty much nothing but a t-shirt and a thong, which is basically very skinny underwear.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Turned around and hunched over, just showing those big buttocks just out there for everyone to see. And what made this extra hilarious was that as I was walking and as I saw this, I looked to my left and I saw a family who was packing up their groceries in their car, and they had several little kids who most definitely could see this, you know, this explicit, you know, imagery on this person's car. And so when I saw the sticker, I remember just thinking, yeah, that's a decision they made. And I just kind of went on with my shopping. But that's not where this story ends. So after I got everything, I went back out to my car. And, you know, usually when you back out of like a parking spot in a parking lot, you'll sometimes, you know, put the car in reverse, and when you're backing out, you'll see someone fairly in the distance who's like driving by. And the usual parking lot protocol is whenever you well, it's kind of thing where it's like if you're in a parking lot, you see someone with those reverse lights, and like you're just like you're a good distance behind you, and you see them about to back out. You stop your car and you let them get out, and then after they go, you continue on your merry way.
I will say, in my experience in parking lots, like it's pretty hit or miss whether I see people do that. A lot of times people just completely ignore you if you're backing out because they just don't care. So,
and that's pretty much what I experienced. I was in the middle of trying to back out, and there was this car that was coming, and he was going relatively slowly, but he was still going. And I was like, all right, he's probably coming to a stop. So I kept going, and he just kept going, and he even honked the horn like it was my fault that I was trying to get out, and he was almost coming in collision. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
it was one of those things where it's like, all right, that's kind of a dick move, but whatever. But when I backed out and I, drove up and I got a closer look at this car, I realized it was the ass sticker, dude. It was the same one.
Yeah, that checks
The
out.
same one.
That checks out.
And so this really had me thinking, like, these type of people that have these outrageous stickers, it's one of those things that kind of gives a good idea into what type of person you are. That you're the type of person to have something like this on your car, and you're also probably the type of person to be a dickhead on the road. So, and on top of that, that's not even where the story ends. So, the way this particular Walmart that I go to, the way you leave it, one of the ways that I typically leave is that you take a way out where you reach a stop sign.
I'd imagine that is usually how you leave the parking lot of a place, by taking a way out.
When you reach the stop sign, this particular one, it leads out to the left is a neighborhood, and to the right goes out to the highway. And when you go right, it leads to where you go to a traffic stop where you can turn onto the highway. So when you turn right, when you go left, there are 2 lanes that you can occupy to take up either left or right lane. Well, this ass sticker guy, which I'm just going to refer to him as, the sticker itself could also just be considered hentai, because for those who don't know, that means just anime porn.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's honestly how I saw it. So, hentai sticker, he took up the right lane, and I always take the left lane, because once I get onto the highway, I have to turn left to get home. So, I was able to pull up right beside this car, and I was able to get, not the best look, but I got a good look at who was in there, and it was this fat, and I can say this because I'm one of them, this fat dude who, as he was driving, I distinctively saw him eating out of a Pringles can. Just like...
Literally the most stereotype, like, doesn't go outside gamer person.
Yeah. He's your typical weeaboo, otaku type dude. And, it was really fun. And seeing him and seeing, the sticker and everything, it reminded me a whole lot about this phenomenon of these group of people who, don't go outside. And they specifically are anime fans. And some of them fall into the category of weeaboos, which is basically someone who is really immersed into anime to the point where, most of them are Caucasian, but they'll be like, oh yeah, I love Japanese culture so much. I own all these robes. I know all this hiragana. I know the language. I just love Japan, and honestly, I just think I'm Japanese just based on how well, there's more to it, but
I'm basically from Japan, if you think about it.
There's a video by Filthy Frank on Weeaboos that y'all could look up yourselves and check out if you want to know more information on Weeaboos. But this guy basically gave me that, more of he's one more of the degenerate ones where he's so shameless, he's going to advertise this to everyone who sees his car, which, by the way, it was like a Jeep. It was like one of those Jeeps, not necessarily what you would consider a college type car, but it was just one of those things where it's just like, I just assumed this would be the activities of a degenerate college student, but from what I saw, it looked to be a grown man, probably in his 40s, pulling this off. So, yeah, that's just kind of my experience of seeing this guy, and like seeing the sticker on the dude's car, and it being explicit, girl showing her ass basically with nothing but a thong showing it, and like that's honestly the most dignified way I can describe it, honestly. So that, and me coming across that guy later, him turning out to be a total douchebag on the road, which checks, as you said, that checks out.
It does in fact check out, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of makes a lot of sense.
Makes a lot of sense, yeah. But and it's one of those things where it's like I'm not on here to tell people what to do with like how to like decorate your car or whatever. If you want, like, car stickers are one of those things where it's like it's supposed to be like an expression of like it's more or less.
He is certainly expressing something.
Oh, he's expressing something, and it's one of those things where it's like usually I don't really care, even if it's something like super explicit. Like at this point in my life, I'm 21. I am not yet a parent. So maybe once I become a parent, I'll be one of those like, oh, please think of the children.
Think of the children.
But for right now, it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, it still feels a little weird having something like that to where like a child could see it. Like, let's say this person wanted to go to like, let's say they're the type of person to go to like a Books A Million to buy the latest manga of Rent a Girlfriend or something, which is a manga series, and that's a real manga series.
You would know. What would you know about that?
Right next to the Books A Million is right next to a Toys R Us, and so he parks. Maybe there's not enough space in the Books A Million side, so he parks in the Toys R Us, and so all the kids like coming back to their parents' car with like the latest Spider-Man figurine or something, and they just see it. Like as a parent, what are you supposed to do?
I mean, even beyond that, imagine even beyond that, like imagine this guy just like driving around normally, just like he's driving down the road, and then there's just like some other car who's going somewhere completely different, but they're driving in the same road, and there's kids in the car, and like they can just see, and they can just see. They point to his car. And it's like, Mom, why is she not wearing pants?
Mom, why is her underwear so small? It's barely covering anything. You know what's funny about this? This actually reminds me of a video I remember seeing. It's one of those like it would always make its rounds in like those try not to laugh videos, but it's basically a video about a parked van on like right next to a sidewalk or something, and it was a van that was basically advertising a strip club, and there was there were women that were like dressed in like very skimpy, just like taking all those skimpy poses, and there was the video had the camera pan over to a kid who was on a little bicycle. He just saw it. He's just like, ooh la la. And he just kept riding his bicycle. He kept looking at the van, and then he just runs face first into a pole. he was going very slow, so he wasn't badly hurt, but it was just like this little kid just going, oh la la. It's just like, as a kid, like even if you don't fully understand like the concept, but like behind it, you at the very least know. At a certain age, that it's something that's like explicit and like scandalous to you, right? And so by seeing it, you're being like rebellious, and like it's also something that just trances you. Like even if you're not at the stage of puberty yet, where you're like, partaking in other activities, you're still very much in trance. And we're seeing these women just like in these sexual situations that are just being advertised on this van. And it's just like. I wish I had the video like saved so I could send it to you so that you could see it. But it's just one of the most hilarious videos because especially when the kid he was so distracted that he into a pole on his little bicycle thing.
We truly live in a society.
We truly live in society. Have I used that as the title of an episode?
Yeah,
We truly live in a society.
There is an episode
That feels
titled
like
that.
Okay, so I'm probably not gonna title it that unless I find like a new creative way to like. We truly live in a society.
No, this episode is gonna be titled "Boobies."
No. The title of this episode is gonna be advertising titties to children.
Yeah.
No, that's a little messed up even for me.
That's a title. That is certainly a title. That's like demonetization territory.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna find. We're probably gonna talk about something else. I'm gonna title this episode on. You know what I mean?
We're gonna get demonetized.
We're gonna get demonetized. But yeah, whenever I title an episode, I usually try to like, or whenever I make a short, or whenever I make like a title or something, I always try to keep the curse words and explicits out. You know, like, but I do want to have. I have on my topic list. I do want to have a conversation about this, about curse words and swear words and all that. Like, on this podcast, we're no stranger to using swear words or curse words. I think at the beginning we try and make it a point to not use them, but then later on we later adopted them.
You kind of just said the idea that was basically like, this is a podcast where the kind of topics that we watch, like the people who are going to find this podcast interesting are not like young people that we really need to shield, like family. It's not really like this podcast is not aimed at a family friendly audience. And so like, we don't really make an effort to keep it family friendly. And if you don't like it, well, sorry.
Yeah. And I think it was another thing too, where like the people we knew that are pretty much church people, like a lot of those people don't like hearing others swear and stuff. So the idea was to make a podcast that was friendly to that, but later on we just kind of adopted more like explicit language, which is more in tune with our everyday language. And it's one of those things where it's like, I remember having a conversation with a church person like last year or something about this, about the the prospect of using curse words. And my stance on it is one of those things where it's like, the idea of having swear words in general, like having words that are bad just by the prospect of them being bad based on whatever artificial reason you want to create. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, it never really made sense to me why have these words if we're not even going to be like it's socially acceptable to say it. It's especially when half the population is going to say them anyways, and in that part of the opinion, it is socially acceptable.
I think the thing is, like, it really has less to do with the word itself and more to do with how they're used. And I think society came up with swear words as kind of just because we had words that were so often used in a certain context and carried so much significance in that context that people just decided like it's a connotation that got associated with them, or people associated a certain connotation with the word, and we just collectively agreed as a society, yeah, this is now a bad word, and it's gonna be considered not clean to use.
I've heard that argument before, and it never really made sense to me because
it doesn't make sense.
Take a word like shit. It refers to fecal matter in one meaning of the word, but you can also take a more figurative meaning of the word. But the point is, shit, whether you call it shit or poop or crap or tool or stool, whatever, it refers to the same thing. So why is this one particular word shit?
That's the thing. That's the other thing too. Is out
of the other words.
Like right? when we take a word, we decide that it's like a curse word or a swear word, and naturally people will invent other words that are designed to be we call them censor words because it's a less vulgar way to say the same thing. It carries the exact same meaning, it's just a different word. It doesn't mean anything different, and so people have attached this kind of stigma only to the word itself and not to the context of it or what it means, because like we have other words that mean the exact same thing but that we're just fine with using. So why is it that one word is so bad and another word that means the same thing is completely fine, right?
That's another thing. That's another thing I wanted to touch on real quick. There's different levels of, I guess you could say, severity of like these curse words. Like words like fuck, shit, bitch. They're up on like the upper echelon of like swear words. But then you have a couple of words that are known as like that are seen as significantly less bad, like damn and hell, and like crap and like stuff like that, which I feel like crap is a level below damn and hell, because like you could on a Cartoon Network show you could say words like crap, but you can't say words like damn or hell. So it's like all these different levels of that are like, you know, at different levels of severity, and this is especially interesting for me when it comes to like swear word usage in media. And like media is a big thing where it's like there are different parts of media that are supposed to appeal to different audiences, and one of those audiences is going to be, you know, children. Another audience is going to be adults. But then you have this other audience which is supposed to be just a general audience. You know, adults, children, just all of them. So, and this mostly comes in the form of commercials. When you're making a commercial that's either selling something or like a movie trailer, like the main goal with the trailer is to make something that will be, no matter how adult or like how adult themed the movie is, you want to make a trailer that's generally acceptable, like for a general public. Because
Right.
if you include a bunch of stuff that would be objectionable to certain groups of people, they could get angry and they could, you know, file complaints or even lawsuits to whoever making the trailer. So it's like, and that's the interesting thing about it when it comes to like commercials, where they try to represent real life, but you know, they don't want to include these, you know, these curse words, especially not like the swear words or anything. But what's funny is some of the commercials, they do play into the fact that people use these swear words. Like they'll have like either someone say "oh," and then they get cut off or something.
Yeah.
Or more commonly, someone will like they'll replace the explicit word with either a tie-in to the actual thing, or they just use something else entirely. Like there was a commercial for something called Hill something, and the main tagline was "Oh hell yeah!" It's supposed to be Hill yeah. And there's another commercial that is getting like on YouTube or something, like it's like YouTube ad, where it's like, I think the product is called Damp or something. It's supposed to be like some sort of laundry related thing. And in the commercial, in the first few seconds, someone walks into the room and they just go, "Oh damn!" And they're trying to say "oh damn," and it's supposed to be a play on that. So it's like, even though we don't actually use the words, usually we don't use the words, but we still play into these like words. And there's other examples that are leaving my memory right now. I wish I could bring it up right now, but like the point is, I just find it very fascinating. This is something I've always wanted to talk about on this podcast, because like it's one of those unspoken things where it's like we started off straying away from using using swear words or whatever, and even in the cases where I did use some censor them out. But now it's like we're at the point now where our episodes can just be littered with them, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
And even then, I still try to keep it like at a minimum, so like not too overboard. Because I do still think there is a instance where you can go overboard with using explicit words, like especially modern shows. There's always that one character who like they use a swear word every single sentence, sometimes multiple times in a sentence. Just like, and like that also just kind of renders as corny. That's just comes off as a writer trying too hard to be edgy or whatever. So there's a limit to it, most definitely. It's kind of one of those things where there's no clear answer should we get rid of the stigma of swear words, or should we keep it in place, but like at a more minimal level? Like, there really is no easy answer to it. Like, we can ponder about this, but the conclusion, like, we can ponder for several hours, but the conclusion is going to be the same. Or at least that's what I think. But I just think it's just interesting. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is how there are a couple of commercials that are coming out now that are using words like damn or hell. Like, they're just straight up using it. And even nowadays, like the recent Disney live action remake of Lilo and Stitch, this is a Disney movie trailer that has someone saying what the hell, like, and this is something I brought up before, how like that is starting to get like more commonplace to the point where Disney, of all companies, the most kid-friendly company making kid-friendly movies, they're now deeming it acceptable. So it's like, it really is interesting. Like, if we're going to accept words like damn or hell, what's going to prevent us from starting to accept other words like fuck or shit or bitch or dick or all those other things? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what, like, is there going to be a point where we consider them to be acceptable, or do you think they're just always going to just remain the top bad words?
I don't know. It probably depends on just like how society progresses, because like you pointed out with like, you know, even Disney movies of all things just kind of moving toward using more of those type of words in their movies and even now in their trailers, as you said, like they're kind of becoming more common, I guess. And so like the more common they become and the more use they see, the more the stigma kind of gets suppressed, and the more people just think about like, is it really that bad?
Yeah, there was a controversy. This is the other thing we're going to bring up. There was a controversy a few years ago over a Burger King commercial that basically was like not even like staged, but they just had like, well, okay, they claim they film it in a way where it's not staged, but you know, it could be fake reactions, but that doesn't matter. Basically, the commercial ended with someone eating the food and being like, "Oh, damn," and there was like backlash on that. But now we're seeing other commercials either play into saying the word or just straight up saying the word "damn," and we're not seeing as many or really any backlash to that at all. So it's like, that's proof that like even the words that most would consider inoffensive, like damn or hell, still had people up in arms about it back a few years ago, like as recent as that. But now it's like, we're into a point where it's practically becoming non-existent. Not saying that there aren't people out there who still consider damn and hell to be like curse words and words you shouldn't say, like in a context like a commercial or whatever, but I feel like that's just becoming less commonplace now. So, and that's just something I just find it extremely interesting. And again, the whole point of this conversation is I just find it interesting, you know, the idea of like, you know, you're honestly raised to not say curse words, but then as you grow up, you just see more and more people cursing. And it's one of those things where it's just like, you know, if so many people are already like saying these words that are supposedly super bad, then it's like, what's the point of, you know, being an outlier? But it's not even like just strictly that. It's just more about like coming to your own conclusions about whether or not you want to say these words. And all of this discussions about these swear words is not taking into account any like derogatory words or like slurs. Like that's a whole different conversation.
That's a whole different thing. Yeah,
we're strictly talking about the traditional swear words in the meaning of the sense, right? So like that's just kind of where I'm at. Like it's a little hard to explain without going super deep into it, like getting like hours long into discussion, but like my main stance on it is that it's just a matter of like still be mindful about those who still might not be appreciative of hearing that type of language, but generally speaking, I think a lot of people nowadays are, you know, of the opinion that, you know, these type of words are not a big deal. And it's like, it is what it is. It's just language at the end of the day. And like, it is one of those things where it's like, the other interesting thing about swear words is how like when you say a swear word after like stubbing your toe or something, or like experiencing some sort of pain, the like there is scientific research that shows that like saying a swear word, it like could actually make you feel a little better. And I think it's because of how like, you know, forbid, like especially if you're not usually the type of person to swear, like saying a swear word like that, like going against what I guess you would say society is telling you to do in order to like relieve yourself of some pain that you're experiencing. I think that plays into like the relief of it. Like, I don't know, I'm not entirely sure what's the theory behind that whole study, but have you heard that before about saying saying swear word?
I have heard that there is like some scientific evidence that like not even just saying swear words, but just like exclaiming, I guess, in general, like making some kind of sound or exclamation when you're in pain is like it has like some kind of chemical effect in the brain that like like drowns out pain signals or something. I don't know. But I've heard of there like being scientific evidence for that. So
yeah, and so it's one of those things where it's just like you could use a stand-in if you like stub your turns, like or something like that. But most people, when they stub their toe, they're just gonna be like, "Oh fuck!"
It's just like a natural.
It's a natural
response,
thing,
I guess. Yeah.
Which, you know what? Now that we're thinking about it that way, maybe the whole prospect of there being swear words is actually a conspiracy from the government.
Conspiracy.
See, they know
everything is a conspiracy from the government.
They know that these swear words are being said when experiencing pain, and that these swear words help deal with the pain. And so by making these swear words banned and like making them to where it's like it's socially not cool to say them, they prevent people from relieving. They prevent people from relieving that pain, which then causes them to go to the doctors.
That's gonna be the
doctors, they want money and more money for the government.
That's gonna be a title of this episode. Swearing is socially not cool.
Or at least that's what the government wants you to think. That's what I'm going to have in parentheses.
According to the government.
The government is telling. The government doesn't want you to swear because it will make them less money.
Yeah.
That's going to be the title.
Amazing title.
I'm going to type that. The government doesn't want you to swear.
Because it makes them less money.
Because it makes them less money. That's funny.
Next up, you're gonna have a conspiracy theory that the national debt is because of how much people don't swear.
I mean, generally, I just say these conspiracies as a joke. You know what I mean? Like, there's a few that like holds a little water for me, but most of the time, I just see it as just like taking pot shots at the government just because it's funny. If you have a good punchline, for it, then it's funny.
The only time we'll ever, or the only capacity in which we'll ever discuss politics on the podcast is when we're taking pot shots at the government for comedy.
And when just referring to it just generally the government, not singling out any one party or whatever, just like taking pot shots at just the government in general, because like it's just one of those things. Yeah. All right. So this next topic is admittedly a smaller one. It's just one I had a shower thought, but this kind of reminds me a bit of the Powerade and Gatorade thing I brought up before, and obviously you had that test where you're able to tell the difference.
There is a difference. I told you there was a difference in the taste between them. They're not the same.
Now I have a question for you regarding a different type of thing, and I really would like to do a test on you regarding this, and this is in relation to apples, particularly red ones and green ones. And what inspired me about this was I was reading something. I was reading like a graphic novel or something, and there was a part where someone was like, he's kind of like a romantic. He's like describing someone's like, they have the smell of green apples. And I remember reading that. I was like, wait, don't they smell like red apples? And then I got into this rabbit hole. Like, wait, do red apples and green apples have any distinct smell or taste? Like,
they do.
If I gave you, okay, so I want to ask you, Steven, if I gave you like an apple slice from each apple and like blindfolded you and you ate each one, like ate the crust and everything, would you be able to tell?
I'm sorry, chat. Will just
or
call.
whatever the outside.
No.
The outside
Clip
of the
that.
apple.
Chat. Clip that. This man just called it the crust of an apple. I want the internet.
What
I want
do you
this.
Call it?
The
What
skin.
do you call it?
It's called
Like
the skin, you idiot.
The skin. All right, you could call it that. I mean,
It's called that's what it's called. It's
okay.
Oh, I'm googling this right now because
I
you're
didn't
not
know
real.
apples got you. I didn't know apples got you this riled up by me mistaking the terminology of apples.
Yeah.
I just got this man riled up.
Yes, the outside of an apple is called the skin or peel, not the crust. Oh.
All right, well,
No, we're making a short out of that. If Will doesn't do it, then I'll do it, and I'll put it on my channel.
all right. Whatever you call it, the crust, the peel, the cover of an apple.
The cover.
I'm a.
Well, chat, are we real right now? Are we real right now, chat?
But moving on from that, if I gave you the apple slice that contained the skin, the red skin of a red apple, and the red and the green, if you were to taste them individually, blindfolded, would you be able to tell which one's the red apple and which one's the green apple?
I would say probably. Now, keep in mind, I don't really eat apples. I mean, I have eaten them, so I know what they taste like. But I don't eat them like on the regular. So it's not like something that I'm like super familiar with. However, I'm pretty sure it's like well established that red and green apples have distinct flavors, because like that's kind of the whole point of them being different things, is that they taste different. Because green apples are like more sour. They have like a more sour taste to them. So I mean, I'm assuming.
Me personally, I've never really tasted much of a difference. But though I guess that could be I guess that could be true about them being very distinct and their green skin.
But I think they're supposed to
skin.
be different. I'm pretty sure red and green apples are supposed to be like Powerade and Gatorade. Like they're not distinct on intentionally. They're just different because different people made them. They're still the same thing. Red and green apples are like very distinctly not the same thing. They're like two completely different fruits.
Well, I wouldn't say completely different. At the end of the day, they're both apples.
Well, but they're like different types of apples.
And like, I guess I'm just questioning: is the difference really like different enough to where like if you were to like use it in a simile?
Well, like think about it this way,
like someone's
right?
is like an apple.
Well,
would you
about
say
this
they're
way.
like a red apple specifically or a green apple specifically?
Think about it this way: if there was no difference, and if they tasted the same and were basically like the same thing, like functionally, then why would they be sold separately as two different products? Why would they be considered two?
My way of thinking of it is I've always just saw apples as one of those things that just came out depending on whatever like farming or whatever type of seed. Like you may have like seeds that like grow them in different colors, like red
it depends
or green,
on
but
the
fundamentally it's still an apple. It's still an apple that has a core in the middle. Like you eat it the same way. We're not talking about like a pear thing that is like that's like shaped different. We're talking about red and green apples that are shaped the same. They function the same. You just eat them, and it's like you could maybe like tell. I guess that's what I'm proposing now. Like if I were to feed you apple slices from both of them,
We'll feed Steven apple slices.
Not just tell the difference, but be able to identify them.
I feel like yeah, well, because like I said, like they're obviously different things. Like I feel like that's kind of just, it's kind of implied because of the fact that they're like considered distinct from each other. Like if there wasn't a difference and they weren't like they weren't different in some way, they wouldn't be considered distinct, and they would just be different colors. It's like the difference between a potato and a sweet potato, or like the difference between red and green peppers. Like,
well, I wouldn't necessarily. Peppers is another thing we could maybe get into. But I'm not too familiar with peppers, but apples. I've always just saw it as like they were sold differently, based on like just based on how they government. Just based on how they look. Like maybe there's like you said, green apples may taste sour, more sour or something, and it has something to do with like the pigment of the skin, of like the greenness of it. Like,
I don't think it's even just the skin. I think like the actual fruit on the inside like has a different, because like they're different. Like they're both apples, yes, but they're different like plants. Like they come from different types of. It's like a genetic thing, I think. Or they may just be like different species of apple entirely. I mean I'm not familiar with.
All I know about apples is that they come from trees. So they grow on trees. You peel them off from the tree, and then you have apples. Maybe it's a different type of tree. I feel like this one of the things.
I think it's because it's like a different species of plant. Like the plant of the apple tree, like that grows the apple. I'm pretty sure it's a different species, a different specific species of that tree that grows the green ones versus the blue ones. I think that's why. But if you for the like specific question that you were asking of like would I be able to tell the difference, I'm fairly certain that I would be able to tell, just because I think they're distinct enough from each other that any normal person will be able to tell. Any normal person who eats apples would be able to tell. If you can't, then you are just not good at distinguishing flavors.
All right, so if you could tell differerences, could you tell which one's red, which one's green?
Probably, because the green one would just be the more sour tasting one.
All right, that's it. Then it's decided. Next time we see each other or are home at the same time, we're gonna have a Mario Kart race, but
that's kind of a given every time we get together. Yeah, fun fact.
In the same account,
I feel like letting the viewers of the viewers and listeners of the podcast know that Will has been actively telling me in DMs that he has been training in Mario Kart and practicing.
Every time I go back home, I hop onto Mario Kart.
He's obviously still insecure about his abilities, even though he won the last time.
Well, I'm just making sure my skills don't get rusty. You should be doing the exact same thing.
How do you know I'm not? Maybe I'm just not announcing it to my enemy. Maybe I'm just not letting.
Well, I'm just confident in my skills. That's just me. All right, I'm just telling you. I'm trying to be generous and give you that. You know what I mean? I've been testing out some new...
so when I get my revenge and win, you can blame it on the fact. Well, but I told you I was practicing, so you had you chose. If
I lose, that means I just lost too many races. That's all it is. I don't do what you do. I just come up with excuses. Like
I don't come up with excuses. Like I am confident in my abilities. Your abilities just happen to be slightly better in that particular iteration of the run.
And so next time we battle, you just need to have your skills be better than mine. That's as simple as it gets.
They will be.
But anyway, but besides that, after we do that, we're gonna have a apple taste test where I'm gonna have you taste both apples. I'm gonna cut up slices of them. I'm gonna have you
feed them to me like I'm a little kid, cutting them into slices.
We're doing this for the purpose of seeing if you could tell not only the difference between them, but tell which one's which. Which one's the red one? Which one's the green one? Like, because I am of the opinion that they both taste generally the same. And if you taste them blindfolded, then you're gonna have at the very least a little bit of a trying to figure out which one's which.
I mean, not if the flavor is like recognizable, because like with the Powerade and Gatorade,
that's gonna be the test.
Like with the Powerade and Gatorade, I instantly, like before I even did the actual taste test, I instantly knew just based on the smell which one was Powerade and which one was Gatorade, because they're just that different from each other.
But this time around, I'm making it a little more difficult. It's gonna be at the very least a little more difficult for you, and we're gonna put your theory to the test that they do have distinct enough differences that you can tell which one's which. That's going to be the test.
I mean, even if I can't tell a difference, that could just be based on my inexperience with apples. That doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have distinct flavors. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who can tell the difference.
I'm just pulling you as like just a general person. You know, just like
general
someone
person.
who's just like
who
knows what apples are and knows, you know,
I don't eat
them all the
apples
time, but they know
regularly.
what they taste like generally. I'm not trying to pull like a apple expert who would probably know. I'm just pull in apples before and at the very least knows what they taste like. I'm not looking for someone who's experienced in this field.
I don't know. This feels targeted.
That.
This feels targeted to me.
It probably is targeted, and what are you gonna do about it?
It's just this just feels like something that you think that you can hold over me if I end up getting it wrong because I have not eaten apples.
If you get it wrong, it's like at the end of the day, it's just apples, man. It's just apples.
It's just apples, man. It's not.
and this is just a question that I genuinely am curious about, whether or not you might prove me wrong once again. That is entirely possible. And I know for a fact if that happens, you're gonna hold that over. Like you're telling me not to hold my head every time the Powerade Gatorade thing.
I have not. Listen, I have not said anything about the Powerade and Gatorade thing since we did. Okay, or maybe like one.
You have brought that up several times.
Maybe like once or twice. But I've never held it over you and been like
Powerade or Gatorade in another context. You always bring.
But I've never,
right?
but like I've never held it over you. Like, you were wrong. Like I just
no,
like,
you definitely have done that. You definitely have done that.
We started it with me saying, yeah, Powerade and Gatorade taste different, and you were like, no, they don't. I can't tell a difference. And
I made my argument. I made my argument, and I was proven wrong.
But your argument was that
you brought it up several times before as my head. So if you're gonna do it, just own it, man. Just own it.
Because
just own it.
Well, yeah, but like I don't like
even
to...
if you think it's super easy, and I told you you don't need air to breathe, and you prove me wrong on that. It's just like that's.
But like I don't.
If you're gonna make fun of me for that, just do it.
But I don't really like to. I don't really like to like hold it against people when it's like yeah, you were wrong, okay, but like, you know, I'm not gonna hold that against you. I'm not gonna see you any differently because you got that one thing wrong. It's like, yeah, you got it wrong. It was cool to prove you wrong in the moment, but like, just move on, bro. There's no need to like go back to it.
That's what I do. I move on, and you know. And when bringing this up, the first thing out of your mouth was, you know, oh, Powerade, Gatorade, this, like that.
No, you were the one who brought up. You were like, remember how we did the Powerade and Gatorade thing? Well, now I want to do it for apples.
I was acknowledging the fact that it happened. You didn't have to go into detail about the results that everyone's already. I was acknowledging the fact because this is an undeniable similarity. This red and that green apple thing. It would be weird of me not to mention the Powerade Gatorade thing just because I was proven wrong. That's just something that's documented. You know what I mean?
I don't know, man. I can't really remember bringing it up that often after the fact. Like, you know, I mean,
it's not that you brought it up all the time. It was just a matter of like a couple of occasions where
the only thing
it might have been something I said and you were just responding to that. But the fact of the matter is, you have in a way that almost seems like you were gleefully talking.
Well, the thing is, like, it's not like I'm
not saying it's anything wrong. I'm just saying denying that is just like.
The thing is, like, the main
point.
The main point of the Powerade and Gatorade argument in the first place wasn't even to prove you wrong. Like, it wasn't because of anything I had against you. It's like I said that I could tell a difference between them, and you didn't think I could. So I was really just proving like my own value and like that I wasn't capping when I said I could tell the difference. So like, it's not necessarily proving that you were wrong. It's more so proving that like I wasn't just making something up.
It was proving that you were right, which was only being wrong, but you know.
But it's like a different it's a different dynamic, I guess.
It's like that NBA interview where like a player was asked, "Did you lose or did the other team win?" And the player just went, "What? What are you talking about, man?"
I feel like both of those things would have to be true.
Yeah, and that was the thing that confused the player. Like, wait, what? Did your team lose or did the other team win? It's like,
see all of the above.
I forgot exactly what player that was, but that resulted in the like what reaction thing. I don't know if you've seen that reaction clip be used before. It's pretty common in a lot of videos I see. When like someone's reacting to something and they're just confused, they just use that video clip. It's him going, "What?" Something like that. but
What are you,
yeah.
what are you talking about, man?
What are you talking about, man? I could probably look it up and show you, but how long have we been going?
54 minutes.
54 minutes. I think I'm going to. I think I'm just gonna leave it at. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that.
What a
that,
what a podcast. We talked about we talked about anime stickers on cars that don't have pants on. We talked about swearing, and we talked about apples. Not apple, apples. There's a difference.
Apples. I do. And during the test of like, can you apple slices? One of the things I might hand you, I might just hand you a phone, and you just take a bite. And it's like
Yeah,
this is a phone. It's like, what? It's an apple. It's another apple. I need you to tell the difference between this and the real apple.
I don't know, man. Seems like a pretty tough one. The next next test that we're gonna come up with, Will sees if Steven can tell the difference between an iPhone and an Android.
But yeah, the title of this episode is going to encompass everything we talked about, which is naked girls. What was the second thing we talked about? Swears and like. There's a rock and roll saying of like sex, drugs, murder, or sex, drugs, money. That's our three things: just sex, swears, and apples.
Sex, swears, and apples. What a
swears, apples.
What a set of topics. What a set of topics.
Yeah.
I don't see how there's any way that people don't watch this video because they're gonna be wondering what we're talking about.
It's either gonna be that or the government conspiracy title that I came up with. The government
that I came up with
because it makes less money. Well, we both collaborated.
You mentioned the conspiracy. I was the one who said that's gonna be the title of the episode.
And I came up with the format. Well, whatever. Man, we argue a lot. What's up with that? What's up with that, Steven?
I don't know. I think we both just find arguing to be a method of mental stimulation that allows us to really have to think, you know? It's like a challenge.
I think he's just like fighting. That's what I think. I think he's just like fighting others.
Nah. I only see. Here's the thing. I only like arguing with people.
A violent person, Steven.
I only like arguing with people when it's over something interesting. I'm not gonna argue with you about something that.
You only like arguing against stupid people, is what you're saying.
No, I said when the topic is interesting. Will, how did you get stupid people from that?
That's what I use.
I don't like arguing against stupid people because they're not good at arguing, and it's not fun to argue with them. Because you either just completely dominate them, or you can't tell them anything because they just don't get it. And with smart people, they actually understand your argument.
Usually when you argue, if the other person isn't willing to compromise, then you're not going to be willing to compromise. It's just a long battle, back and forth, back and forth. That's usually how it goes.
Until one person eventually just admits that, yeah, you have a point.
A lot of times in those type of arguments, at the best case scenario, it's like to each their own. Which is how some of our arguments have kind of come to the conclusion of, like, to each of their own. But yeah. I will admit, there are times where I've had arguments with you where it's like, I was kind of in the wrong. But then there's other times explain something and it's just like, you know, it's either me not explaining it in the way that I believe it, or it's just like something not processing. But it's just, it is what it is. Fun fact. That's this podcast in a nutshell. We bring up topics, yes, but there's another part of it. We like to argue.
Yeah, fun fact, guys. There's actually a deleted scene of like half of an episode that we recorded that we eventually scrapped because we got into a pretty big argument over one of the topics because I'm an idiot and couldn't understand what Will was trying to. He was like asking me about a scenario of something and like. I was like, it was like a scenario based thing. He was like, I'm gonna give you a scenario and you tell me like what you would do, and like I gave an answer and he just like didn't really like my answer, so he was like trying to explain how like that's not what I'm asking. I want you to say like this type of like think of like this, and I just wasn't getting it. And we ended up getting into a huge argument over it, and eventually Will just decided that he didn't want to do the episode anymore. So
it was one of those things. So I remember exactly what you were talking about. It was me giving a scenario, and after you gave an answer, I was like, okay, so that's your answer to that particular scenario, but I'm going to offer up a different scenario, a different situation in this particular scenario. And I think Steven was assuming that I was trying to get him to change his answer, when really I was trying to have him give another answer, that his other answer was still valid, but it was just another situation in the same scenario that I was trying to get like varied responses basically, and I think it was like miscommunication.
Yeah, I don't give varied responses. I'm a very simple guy. If I have an answer to a question, that's pretty much always going to be my answer to the question.
I was trying to get him. Basically, I think what it was like I gave him a scenario, and he gave an answer of what he would do in that scenario. And I wanted him to give an answer of like him doing something else, and he just stuck to that answer of doing the same thing. Which, I mean, in retrospect, I will admit, like, I probably could have phrased a little better, like gave a different scenario altogether that placed you in a different situation. But the whole point was I was trying to get him to give varied responses, and he just kept getting the same one, and I was getting frustrated because of that. And I think that's kind of what ended up happening. It was one of those things where I was just wanting him to, give other answers, just not even better answers, just other answers, and that's just the end up happening. But that's neither here nor there. So yeah, we never ended up releasing that episode. I don't even know if you still have it.
I don't remember. I could probably look, but I don't remember.
There was another incident where where I basically had to cut out a segment because it was honestly too stupid for me to even comprehend. Like, to this day, I still don't know what you were on, but we're not going to get into that. Point is, we're very argumentative.
That's just part of the dynamic of this of the podcast hosts that you know and love.
Yeah. But with that being said, this podcast does unfortunately have to come to a close this instance. We'll be back with another episode. But for now, we're gonna hit stop on the record button. I'm gonna edit this. I'm gonna put this out there, and hopefully, I haven't checked in a while, but Steven, when are you going to get the next few episodes on Spotify?
Oh, that's a great question. I have completely forgotten about doing that. Yeah, so remember how I said in that one episode that by the time the episode was out, I was going to have all the episodes on Spotify? Yeah, that didn't happen, and there's still like 10 episodes that are not on Spotify, so they'll probably be there at some point. Maybe by the time this episode is finished, is out, and you're watching this, and you're listening to me saying this right now, and you can go to anchor.fm/whatever. The link is in the description.
Just go to the link in the description. It's right there.
And you can find out what platforms our podcast is on for listening, and you can listen on whatever platform you want, whether it be Spotify or Apple Music podcasts or whatever it is. I don't know what the other ones are, but there you go.
Yeah. You know what I find funny? Those other smaller type podcasts, like platforms, I always wonder, I usually don't check them. Like, I don't know if they like give an indication of like how many people see them, like how many people have like consumed them.
I think on the platform that I use to upload the episodes, it tells me like how many like listens or plays the episodes have like in total, and then it'll tell you like what percentage of the what percentage came from which platforms.
I always thought, like, what if we just blew up big on one of those platforms and we just never knew it because we never checked them?
Yeah, because that's totally gonna happen.
It's possible. It's possible. Don't knock it.
We're gonna become a Spotify podcast instead of a YouTube podcast.
Well, we'll still be primarily on YouTube, but we'll have all the other episodes out on other platforms, right? Ain't nothing wrong with YouTube. Well, there's some wrong with YouTube, but generally...
Starting with the fact that it's owned by Google.
For what we do. For what we do, YouTube ain't half bad. Like, we're not... There's no really other barrel video platforms. There's been those that come up and have tried, like Rumble or whatever, but they just never
The
worked.
most recent episode that I have on podcast platforms is episode 49, which is titled "Holy Cow! A New Episode in 2025."
It's like the only episode on streaming services that's from this current era. This current era of ours. This animated background, animated us?
Animated us. Yes, that's right. That's right. You heard it here first. We are not real people. We are animated. This is just a super realistic animation.
Yeah, we're just
that
AI.
using.
We're not even just animated. We're just straight up AI. We were never real to be.
Yeah. Just for fun.
You should feel like a fool. You should feel like a fool for thinking anything else.
Just for fun, at some point we should have AI write an episode for us.
Oh, gee. that I can only imagine bad things from that.
Just give ChatGPT like the description of our podcast and then tell it to like write an episode based on.
It's gonna
like,
sound so
current
robotic. That's the thing
topics. About it. We'll just title it "AI wrote this episode." We use ChatGPT to write this episode.
Who's gonna watch that? Who's gonna even for a small audience? Who's gonna want to
Probably
see
no
something written by AI versus something by like us? Which is like, regardless of how well we do in our department, at least we're human beings writing this. There's a whole stigma against AI right now that's like honestly not deserved. Like because it's like. Yeah. Because, AI is doing a lot. There's some shady things behind, the prospect of using it rather than actual people. Robots taking their jobs. They're taking their jobs.
The thing about our podcast as well is that, like, our episodes aren't really written anyway. We don't really write our episodes.
Well, of course not. Like, I have a topic list where I write. Everything after that is basically conversation, right?
Yeah, well, I say that because like on like a lot of like larger or like more focused podcasts where they have like an actual theme that they try to follow, a lot of times they will write their episodes and they'll have like kind of a script that they follow and stuff like that.
That's always super weird to me. Like podcasts that do that, it's like at that point you might make it like you might as well just make it like a fictionalized story where you can do anything you want and whatever crazy things happen, you can just make it happen scripted. Like, why would you go by a script? Why would you follow a script of something super mundane, scripting out like how your conversation goes? Like that defeats the purpose. But I guess it just depends on what type of podcast you're doing. I guess it also you also have other podcasts that aren't really conversation.
Like our podcast isn't really focused. Like we don't really talk about one thing in particular. We just kind of we call it a comedy podcast, but it's mostly because
we tell jokes.
Yeah.
We tell jokes. That's why we call it comedy. But
we talk about like a lot of different things.
Yeah, just anything like pop culture or something that we experience. Or
anything that
stories.
Steven doesn't know about. If Steven doesn't know it's a thing, it's probably going to show up on this podcast.
No, it's not even like I specifically single out topics that you're not going to know. Like,
really?
Listen to what I say in the beginning. Listen to what I say. I bring up topics that Steven will respond to. He may or may not know what I'm talking about. So it's like you may know, you may not. That's the whole point. I don't know if you know any of these things. That's why I always have to ask beforehand when talking about something. Like, do you know who this
I love
seen
being the person where whenever somebody is about to explain something and I'm sitting here, the first thing that always has to happen is, have you ever heard of this? Do you know what
I mean, that's just how it goes. You know what I mean? That's how it is, right? Like, I don't know how else to do it, because if I just go into how can I possibly make it something that you could like add something?
He
has
to ask that. He has to ask that every time because of what happened with the Scooby-Doo. you know Scooby-Doo, right?
It didn't even start with Scooby-Doo. That's just the most famous example. Like, but okay,
that short is still one of like our all-time like top moments on this podcast.
All right, yeah. I said I was gonna end this episode, and then Steven kept talking.
How is this my fault? How is this my fault?
All right, I'm gonna end this episode. I'm not gonna allow him to get me going any further. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back soon with another episode for you. And as always, please like and subscribe for another episode of To Whom It May Concern. Podcast out.